Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, let's catch up on alt art, see where they're at now. I mean, it's a crazy few months, easily doubling your money overnight. But now that the hype and FOMO is over with, let's see how much you could have made and how low these cards could go. Because if you learn anything from the Sun and Moon era hype, once it's over, there's a lot of room to fall, like 30 to 45%. So let's just start with the top chase card of the Sword and Shield era, the Moonbreon. We're looking at the 6 months chart and the starting price was $547. Hit a high of $958. Now I'm pretty sure it probably sold a few over 1,000, but the average didn't get to it. But that's a profit of $411, up 75%, which is actually one of the smaller gainers in the alt art hype. But now it's down 12%, sitting at $845. Now the price prediction I have right there is if this card falls another 10%. So if it falls to 22% down from where its peak is, it will sit around $766. I should mention I had this list based on the smallest drop from the peak. So Moonbreon was actually the smallest drop so far at only 12%, and the next top chase card with the smallest drop is at 19%, which is the Giratina. This card started out at $250, hit a high of $480, which is insane. It nearly doubled up, all right, nearly. It was just right there on the verge of doubling up. That's a profit of $230. But now it's sitting at $390, so it's down 19%. But if it falls another 10%, which is all the price predictions are just plusing 10% from where it's currently at, so that'll be a price target of $336, which is not much more lower, right? I mean, $60 lower, but I think that's pretty fair. I think $336 compared to where it started at $250 is more natural course of how high it should be versus doubling up in like a month's time, 2 months' time. Alright, next up we have Galarian Moltres V, one of my personal favorite cards. This one didn't blow up as much as the other ones. It's actually the smallest gainer on this whole list. Starting price of $129, up only 40%, which is a profit of $52, and it's down now 20%. But if it falls another 10%, it'll give back all its gains because the price prediction says the price will be $127. So it'll be below where it started at. But this one's pretty close. It's currently sitting at $145. Which is at $15 more than where it started at, so it's not much to give back, which I think is going to be possible. Next up, we got Blaziken VMAX. Not one of my personal favorite cards, but the chase is real for a lot of people with this card. It's chilling pain, so it would make sense to buy this one up if there is a lot of hype and there's no supply for it, because it's going to be it's not a card that's easy to pull. So starting price of $169. This one is actually the biggest gainer at 140%. Profit of $236, which is insane. But it's actually holding up very well, dropping only 21%, which is actually a very small drop. Price prediction says if it hits another 10% lower, it'll be at $284. Next up, we have the Sleepy Tyranitar. Not one of my favorite artworks at all. I definitely prefer the Paldea Evolved version, where it's more Godzilla-like and menacing than the Sleepy Tyranitar. But this one, obviously harder to pull. Starting price of $93. Doubling up in value, a profit of $97. This one's down now 25%, sitting at $143. If it drops another 10%, which it looks like it still wants to keep dropping because the line chart is still just going down, could hit a price of $124. Go from $93 to $124 after the hype is still, a nice appreciation in value, so can't be complaining about that. Next up is the Umbreon V. My personal preference is this card over the Moonbreon, and also value-wise at the time, for the longest time, it was like $80. I was like, this card, why can't this card climb more? And then it started climbing, and I was like shocked at how much it kept on climbing. This card doubled up super fast, 80 to 190, and then now it's down 25%. So it probably will fall more because that's just too big of a gain for a card that nobody wanted for the longest time, for like years. So if it falls another 10%, that'll be a 35% drop. Hit a price target of $125. So going from $80 to $125 is probably more natural, right? It should not be a $200 card from an $80 card. So again, a lot of these cards could keep falling just because we saw in my previous video, the Sun and Moon cards fell pretty hard after the peak. Next up, we have Lugia V. Now, this is a love or hate card for me. I do want it because, I do like Lugia. I think I should just pick up this card, but not at this price. We'll see what my plans for this card in the future. But starting price of $120, hitting a high of $227, which is still crazy, almost doubling up. So gain almost as much as the Giratina did in value. But this one, Silver Tempest wise, is still like readily available. It feels like around stores. I still see loose packs. There's still the tins and stuff that's in. sometimes with the Scarlet and Violet era, I think, packs. But this one's down 25% now, but I think this card, Lugia, is still playable. Because of that, I think it'll fall post-rotation. I don't know. I think price target, if it drops another 10%, it'll be hitting 148, which is just $28 more than where it started at. Next up, we have Rayquaza VMAX, the card that's always battling for the number 2 spot with Giratina for most valuable alt arts. This one started at $247, hit a high of $542 for a modern day card outside the Moonbreon, which is crazy. Down 26%, so the drops are getting bigger. But if you think it could keep going down more, another 10% would be hitting $352. So right now it's at $400. So yeah, that'll be over $150 drop if it falls more. And for me, I prefer the Alt Art V versus the VMAX of Rayquaza. Next up, we have Gengar VMAX. Gengar, big time fan favorite for a lot of people. He doesn't do anything for me, so luckily I don't have to chase after this card. Yeah, one of the more valuable cards, and it's always been steady around that $200 mark. Hit a high of 409, so it doubled up in value. Now, also one of the bigger drops at 27%, but if it keeps on falling, which I think all these alt arts will, it will hit price of 266 if there's 10 more, if it drops another 10%. Next up, we have Charizard V. I can actually pull this one myself, so very happy with that. And even though it, gained only 70%, I did not want to sell this card. I personally love this card because I pulled it myself, so it holds more value with that. But this one's gonna give back all its gains in my eyes. It's down 29% already. If it drops another 10%, so that'll be a drop of almost 40%. It'll hit a price of 120. It started at 117. So I guess this one, if you really bought into the hype, you are gonna lose all your gains. Now the biggest loser, it's actually tied, but this one, percentage-wise, if you don't round it up, is second to the number 1 option. But the biggest loser, one of the biggest losers, is this Machamp V, down 32%. So that's a very big drop compared to everything else was like 25%. So, but if it has more to drop, another 10% drop will put it down at 42%, which is possible because Sun and Moon cards were dropping up to 45%. It will hit a price of 114. But even then, if you bought it at the low of $80, you're still good. That's still crazy gains from 80 to 114. But at the same time, this card was also one of the biggest gainers if you looked at it. 136% is just right behind the Blaziken VMAX. Now we get to the biggest loser from this alt art hype is this Dragonite V. So one of the more valuable cards out there at 193, but now it's down 32%. If it drops another 10%, it hit 116. So that would just be a $20 gain from where it started at $96 6 months ago. I think this one kind of gets lost in the shuffle from Evolving Skies because you got the Moonbreon, Evolutions, you got Rayquaza, and then Dragonite as the 4th option. So, but I personally love this card, OG Pokemon. I picked it up recently, Chinese, Simfly Chinese. Much better value there. That's where I'm going to get all my alt arts in the future. This is an overall picture of the top 5 biggest gainers on this whole list. Blaziken being number 1. I'm surprised about the Machamp and Umbreon V because they were some of the lowest value ones. So I think they were very much underappreciated at that time, but I think they're going to give back most of their gains just because they're V cards, which are not as hard to pull versus VMAX cards. So I understand why the VMAX are on this list. That's the top 5 biggest gainers when a lot of hype goes into that era of cards. But I think these highs are probably not going to be reached again for a very long time, just because we're moving on to bigger and better cards in the Scarlet and Violet era. So I think that a lot of these cards have more room to fall. If you're looking at where they're at now, these top 5 are the biggest losers. Not every card is going to keep dropping from this point on, but I know a lot of these will keep falling another 5-10%. Just like how Sun and Moon, was a great lesson that if you miss the hype, don't get into it. Just wait it out, and you'll buy it at a higher price than where it was pre-hype. But at least you get a better deal than buying into the hype. So if you didn't have FOMO, great for you. You're gonna get some cards at a great deal, and you know what the potentials are for those cards in the long-term future. And if you made it this far, go ahead and comment down below how you did. Did you make some crazy gains? Did you buy something at the top? Kind of regret? Buyer's remorse? Let me know. I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one.